Then suddenly, one morning you wake up and find that very reputation under siege. But here's the kicker. It's not your rivals coming for you. It's not your enemies. It's not the competition lurking in the shadows. According to Papoose, one of hip-hop's most respected veterans, the enemy was much closer to home. He claims the real threat came from someone he once trusted, someone he once welcomed into his circle, someone he believed was on his side. And that person, none other than boxing's self-proclaimed greatest woman of all time, Clarissa Shields. Papoose, known not just for his lyrical talent, but also for being a steady force in hip-hop, has built a career out of consistency, respect, and perseverance. He's been around long enough to survive the ever-changing tides of rap music, earning admiration from both peers and fans alike. He's not flashy, he's not scandal-prone, he's steady, a family man, a lyricist, someone you call when you need credibility on a project. But now, Papoose is reportedly telling those closest to him, and increasingly the public, that Clarissa Shields didn't just walk away from their relationship. She allegedly tried to dismantle his career in the process. According to whispers from insiders, Papoose is saying Clarissa launched what he calls a calculated campaign against him. Not a simple fallout, not just emotional jabs after a breakup, but something far more strategic. He's claiming she made behind-the-scenes phone calls to promoters and event organizers, that she worked overtime to plant doubts about his relevance, and that she actively sought to make him unbookable in the very industry where he had spent years building his credibility. And here's where it gets even messier. Sources allege that Papoose has receipts. We're not talking about vague rumors or he said, she said. We're talking emails. We're talking text messages. We're talking voice notes where Clarissa allegedly brags about ensuring Pap's name doesn't appear on the roster. These are the kinds of claims that, if proven true, could reshape not just their personal story, but the way we look at power dynamics in entertainment and sports. But perhaps the most shocking part of all of this is that, according to insiders, it wasn't even personal. It wasn't about heartbreak, jealousy, or petty revenge. It was about business. Some sources say Clarissa's goal wasn't just to hurt Papoose emotionally, it was to take his place in the very spaces he had carved out for himself. Spaces where he was respected, where his reputation meant something, where he had built trust with promoters, athletes, and audiences. And Clarissa, with her larger-than-life persona, was allegedly determined to step into that role herself, even if it meant pushing him out entirely. For weeks, maybe even months, Papoose kept his feelings private. He confided in close friends, he hinted in conversations, but he didn't take it public. Then, suddenly, the silence broke. When he finally spoke, the impact was immediate. There were no slick Instagram captions, no carefully worded subliminals, no cryptic lyrics meant to fuel speculation. Just a man, raw, staring directly into a camera, speaking words that froze the room. She tried to end me. At first, many people shrugged it off. Because let's be real, hip-hop thrives on drama, and fans are used to messy stories about love gone wrong. The initial reaction was that this was just another celebrity breakup turned sour. But very quickly, it became clear this wasn't about romance. It wasn't about gossip. Papoose wasn't speaking about a love lost. He was speaking about a war declared. And when he named the alleged culprit, jaws dropped. Clarissa Shields. Yes, that Clarissa, the undefeated champion, the double Olympic gold medalist, the woman who has branded herself as the GWAT, the greatest woman of all time. In the ring, she is feared, respected, even adored. But outside the ring, if Papoose is to be believed, she's undefeated in another area entirely, professional sabotage. Industry insiders began sharing stories that painted a chilling picture. The tension between Papoose and Clarissa allegedly didn't end with the relationship. It escalated afterwards, in the shadows. One promoter, who asked to remain anonymous, recounted a phone call he claims to have received directly from Clarissa. According to him, she never outright said don't book Papoose. But the message was clear. If you want Clarissa Shields at your event, you know who not to invite. And in an industry where big names draw crowds and sell tickets, that kind of suggestion isn't taken lightly. This wasn't about petty shade. This wasn't about bitterness. This was power politics at the highest level. Promoters, panel hosts, event organizers, they all began facing a choice. Do you book the veteran rapper, the loyal presence you've always counted on? Or do you chase the star power of an undefeated champion who brings with her international recognition and corporate sponsorships? For many, the answer was obvious, and suddenly, the calls Papoose had come to expect stopped arriving. Invitations dried up. Explanations became vague. Budget issues, creative changes, schedule conflicts. But behind the polite excuses, the reality was harsher. Clarissa's name was replacing his. One insider went further, claiming an email leaked from a mid-level event coordinator included a line that read, "Clarissa requested that if she's on the roster, Pap isn't." Could it be fabricated? Absolutely. The internet is full of fakes. But the mere existence of such messages adds fuel to the fire and helps explain why Papoose has become increasingly vocal about being blackballed. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Pap, once a fixture at crossover events bridging hip-hop and sports, began vanishing from lineups. And Clarissa? She was everywhere, headlining panels, speaking at luncheons, commanding spaces that used to belong to him. The shift wasn't gradual, it was sudden, and to those who had been paying attention, suspiciously well-timed. As the story gained traction, social media turned it into a circus. Twitter threads broke down alleged timelines. TikToks speculated on supposed receipts. Conspiracy-style breakdowns started going viral. And through it all, people began asking, where does Remy Ma fit into this? Papoose's wife, his partner, his longtime support system. She hasn't spoken publicly on the matter. But fans noticed something subtle, her social media activity. A few shady tweets liked here. A few pointed Instagram interactions there. To the internet, silence speaks volumes, and her quiet digital nods only added to the intrigue. The narrative began to shift. No longer was this just about Papoose, the loyal husband betrayed. Now it was Papoose, the industry veteran, being muscled out of his own lane. People began wondering whether Remy had seen this coming all along, whether she had known about the behind-the-scenes moves Clarissa was allegedly making. Was this more than just gossip? Was it a case of survival in an industry where everyone is replaceable if the right star comes along? And what about Clarissa? While Pap was voicing accusations, she wasn't exactly hiding. In fact, she doubled down on her visibility. Just last week, she attended a corporate luncheon where she was the keynote speaker, an event Papoose had regularly attended in past years as a performer. She posted photos, looking confident, captioning one image, "Leveling up means leaving dead weight behind." Was it just a motivational mantra? Or a direct shot at Papoose? The internet didn't hesitate. They decided it was shade, and the narrative spread like wildfire. At this point, the feud had evolved beyond whispers. It was no longer just industry gossip or anonymous sources. It was becoming a battle of public perception. Clarissa seemed to be thriving, her career on an upward trajectory, her visibility expanding. Meanwhile, Papoose was left fighting to preserve his credibility, trying to prove that the setbacks weren't due to irrelevance, but to sabotage. And then, just when things couldn't get any more chaotic, a new player stepped onto the board. Derek "Heatwave" Thomas, a former promoter with grudges of his own. He claimed to have a folder of dirt on both Papoose and Clarissa. Allegedly, years of receipts, conversations, deals gone wrong, backroom politics. And he wasn't shy about letting people know he was ready to release it. However, according to industry whispers and insider accounts, these two didn't just have a disagreement. They had an explosive phone call. And at the center of that call, the spark that turned tension into fire, was none other than Clarissa's new fiancé. Reports claim the conversation, which started calm, spiraled into shouting, accusations, and words that cut deep enough to leave lasting scars. And though this wasn't a public confrontation captured by cameras or live-streamed for the world, word of what was said has begun to leak, and people are taking sides fast. So how did it come to this? How did a rap veteran with decades of industry respect end up clashing over the phone with one of boxing's most dominant champions? And what role does Clarissa's new relationship really play in this storm? Tonight, we're breaking it all down, the backstory, the argument itself, the aftermath, and what it could mean moving forward for everyone involved. To really understand why this phone call mattered so much, you need to know the history. Papoose isn't just any rapper. He's been in the game for decades, carving out a reputation not just for lyrical skill, but for resilience. He's seen trends come and go. He's watched new waves rise and fall, and yet his name continues to carry weight, especially among those who respect authenticity in hip-hop. He's also widely admired for his marriage to fellow rapper Remy Ma, a relationship often held up as a symbol of loyalty and endurance in a world where both can be hard to find. Clarissa Shields, on the other hand, comes from the world of combat sports. She's a two-time Olympic gold medalist, an undefeated professional and a fighter whose confidence matches her skill. Her brand is built on dominance, on being unapologetically bold, on calling herself the GWAT, the greatest woman of all time, and then backing it up with victories inside the ring. She's used to being in the spotlight, used to commanding attention, and used to having her words matter. Somewhere along the way, their worlds intersected. The details of their personal connection have always been murky. Were they just collaborators? Were they friends? Or was there something deeper? Regardless, there was enough history between them that when Clarissa's career began expanding into the entertainment side of things, whispers of tension with Papoose began to circulate. Insiders claim that business opportunities started shifting, that events which used to feature Pap began booking Clarissa instead, and that what could have been a professional rivalry may have gotten tangled up with personal emotions. Fast forward to now, Clarissa Shields is engaged. Her new fiancé has stepped into the picture, and according to multiple reports, that's when the phone rang. On the other end, Papoose, and what followed, if these accounts are to be believed, was not a congratulatory call. It was the kind of conversation that ends relationships for good. The call allegedly began with a pretense of calm. Sources claim Papoose reached out saying he wanted to clear the air. He wanted to talk through the whispers, address some of the speculation, and maybe smooth things over. But almost immediately, the conversation turned sharp. According to insiders, Papoose questioned Clarissa's decision to get engaged so quickly, suggesting she was moving too fast and accusing her of parading her new relationship as a way to flex on him. The implication, they say, was that Clarissa's engagement wasn't about love. It was about optics, about showing him she had leveled up. Clarissa, who is famously direct and never one to back down, allegedly fired right back. She told Pap to stop worrying about her personal life, that he had no business questioning her choices, and that he needed to focus on his own household. And then came the line that reportedly set everything ablaze. "You had your chance. You blew it. My fiancé is a real man. He supports me, something you could never do." Those words, if true, hit Papoose like a body shot. He allegedly snapped, raising his voice, saying Clarissa was being manipulated, that her fiancé was only enjoying the spotlight she brought, and that one day she'd regret trusting him. Clarissa wasn't having it. Her response, according to one person who claims to have overheard, was blunt. "Don't project your failures onto me. You're mad because I moved on and I moved up." From there, the conversation reportedly spiraled. Both voices rose. Accusations flew. Papoose allegedly reminded Clarissa of the doors he'd opened for her early on, claiming she wouldn't have been in certain rooms without his connections. Clarissa countered by saying those doors would have opened anyway because she's a champion, because she's the one putting in the work and winning titles. The heat wasn't just about romance. It was about credit, about pride, about whose name carried more weight. As the argument escalated, it became clear this wasn't a conversation that was going to end peacefully. According to reports, Clarissa accused Papoose of trying to sabotage her happiness, telling him to stop calling promoters, stop spreading victim narratives, and stop pretending he was the gatekeeper to her success. She allegedly pulled him straight up, "You don't control my career. You never did. And you definitely don't control my heart." Papoose, on the other hand, allegedly felt disrespected, not just personally but professionally. He is said to have shouted, "You wouldn't even be in half those spaces if it wasn't for me." And that's when Clarissa supposedly laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not a dismissive chuckle, but a deliberate one. According to one insider, that laugh broke him. Clarissa allegedly followed it with a dagger of a line. "That's why you're bitter. Because those spaces don't call you anymore. They call me. And now, my fiancé walks in with me." That was the breaking point. Depending on who you ask, either Papoose hung up in anger or Clarissa cut the line herself. But whichever way it ended, there was no resolution. Only silence, bitterness, and the guarantee that word of the fight would make its way into the public eye. In the days following, word of the phone call spread quickly. Fans debated the details, dissecting alleged quotes and trying to piece together who was really in the wrong. Some argued that Papoose had no business calling Clarissa in the first place, especially considering his marriage to Remy Ma. To them, his actions seemed messy, maybe even disrespectful to his own household. Others defended Pap, saying if Clarissa had truly been undermining him professionally, he had every right to confront her, even if emotions got the better of him. Clarissa, for her part, hasn't directly addressed the alleged call, but she has been anything but low-key. She's been spotted at events with her fiancé, smiling, posting motivational captions, looking every bit like someone unbothered by outside noise. One particular Instagram story drew attention when she posted the words, "Real recognizes real. Fake gets left behind." Whether it was just a general mantra or a pointed jab, the internet decided it was the latter. And then there's Remy Ma. Pap's wife hasn't commented publicly, but her silence has fueled endless speculation. Fans comb through her social media likes and posts, searching for hidden meanings, subtle acknowledgments, or signs of disapproval. For many, the bigger question isn't even about Clarissa and Pap. It's about whether Remy will address her husband's role in all of this. So what does this phone call really represent? On the surface, it's just an argument between two people with a complicated past. But dig deeper, and it's about much more than that. It's about ego, reputation, legacy, and the fear of being replaced. For Papoose, a man who has spent decades staying relevant in an unforgiving industry, the idea that someone he once helped could now be actively pushing him out, or worse, replacing him with a new partner, cuts at the very core of his identity. For Clarissa, a woman who has had to fight every step of the way to be taken seriously, the suggestion that her success is owed to anyone but herself is an insult she refuses to tolerate. And hovering over it all is her new fiancé, a man who, whether intentionally or not, has become a lightning rod for this conflict. To Clarissa, he represents support, love, and a new chapter. To Pap, he represents loss, replacement, and maybe even betrayal. And that tension, that clash of perspectives, is why this phone call exploded the way it did. So here we are. A phone call that was never supposed to leave the private sphere has now become one of the most talked about controversies linking hip-hop and boxing. A veteran rapper and a world champion boxer clashing not in a ring, not on a stage, but over the phone, over pride, over history, and over a fiancé whose presence changed everything. If direct follows through, this won't just be a feud between two public figures. It can be an industry-shaking moment, exposing how power, influence, and manipulation operate behind the scenes. It could show that this wasn't just a personal falling out, but a window into the ruthless game of relevance and replacement. So here we are. A respected rapper who says he's been pushed out of the industry he helped bridge. An undefeated champion who, depending on who you believe, is either climbing the ladder fairly or stepping on necks to get to the top. A marriage dynamic complicated by silence and speculation. And now, the threat of a third party exposed that could tear the lid off everything. At the end of the day, one truth remains. In the age of receipts and screenshots, reputation is everything. But reputation is also fragile. Screenshots never die. Voice notes never disappear. And when the internet moves on, it doesn't forgive. It forgets. So the question I'll leave you with is simple. Whose side are you on? Do you believe Papoose, the veteran who says he's being erased from his own lane? Or do you believe Clarissa, the champion who insists she's just leveling up? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Because this story, it's far from over.